Two. Peace, peace. Peace to the world. December 30th. No, it's December 31st by now. And we have begun the last day of the Gregorian New Year. The last day of the Gregorian year. It has now gotten underway. We're counting down. Peace, Terry. Peace, Sage. We are rapidly coming to the end of this year. And so we know today we had a new moon in Capricorn. And let me grab something. I don't normally go to this, but tonight let's look at what I'm going to Dane Rudyard's an astrological mandala. And we're going to look at what he has in here for the 9th degree of Capricorn. And just see if it resonates. 9th degree of Capricorn, an angel carrying a harp. Keynote, the revelation of the spiritual meaning and purpose at the core of any life situation. Wow. The revelation of the spiritual meaning and purpose at the core of any life situation. So we know revelation means to, it's funny because that word, I think we kind of misuse it, because if means again and veil means to cover. So revelation is really saying to cover again. But in the context of how we use it, we're really talking about unveiling something. So the unveiling of the spiritual meaning and purpose at the core. The word core means heart, or heart comes from the word core being the center. So the unveiling of the spiritual meaning and purpose at the center or the heart of any life situation. Wow. Giving purpose to everything that life is presenting, or everything that our soul chose to sign up for in this incarnation. This picture simply says that heaven is within us. All we have to do is to be open and listen to the total harmony of life, a harmony in which we play a part that is necessary to the completeness and meaning of the whole. In order to do this, we have to surrender our separative ego consciousness and flow with the universal current, which to the religiously minded person is the will of God. This is the 4th symbol of the series. The technique it implies is that of attunement to the rhythm of universal life. Angels are to be considered personalizations of various aspects of this life and totally subservient to its rhythms and purposes. Wow. So attunement, and he highlights, or he puts this word in all caps, attunement. And tune means to be basically in harmony. It's funny because the outer planets, the reason they can seem to be so difficult or present such difficulty in life is because sometimes it takes us a good bit of time to understand what the outer planets are unfolding. I feel like the outer planets serve in one regard, they serve to ensure that the contract we signed is upheld, because the outer planets create situations for us that are more fatalistic. The outer planets deal with fate, you know, and they create these situations, and we have to, in the frailty of our humanity, have to figure out how to go beyond it to gain the understanding of what these outer planets are reminding us of. And I think that's why they move so slow. Like, they might move 3 degrees. We're talking about like Neptune and Pluto. They might move 3 degrees, then they back up. Then they might take off 3 or 4, then they back up. It's like just slow and drilling it in, because if you think about it, while we are experiencing the pain associated with these planets, with if they're debilitated or in hard aspect to other planets, the response to the pain signal a lot of times overwhelms our ability to objectify ourselves, to sit back and say, well, what am I supposed to be learning from all this? It takes a while to get beyond just like, ouch, that shit hurt, to get beyond that point. And then from the ouch to like, man, I'm mad. Why the hell did I get bit? And then you got to go to, that ain't fair. Why I get bit? And, I'm the only one getting bit. And you have to go through all these stages before you start like, wait a minute, maybe it was all for a reason. And by this time, this planet has crept forward, crept back, crept forward, crept back, and been drilling until you find like, oh, okay. And see, then once you start asking, what am I to learn? When we get to that point where we start seeking the learning, where we're wanting to become the student, it is not until that point that the actual tuning starts to happen. So, for a lot of people, this has been a very, very pressing, trying year. And here we are at the end of the year, and the energy is very heavy, very heavy. And we have Pluto opposing Mars right now. And at the time of the new moon was in a hard aspect to Uranus. So great angst in the air and sense of nervousness and unsettled energy. And at the time of the new moon, my memory serves me correct. Matter of fact, I think I got it cued. I can't show it on here. It won't show up well, but I can look at it myself. At the time of the new moon, which was at 4:26 Central Standard Time, 5:26 Eastern, 9 degrees and 43 minutes of Capricorn. We had the moon in a square and a half to Uranus, and Mercury in a square and a half to Mars. So there's a great angst in the air, and a sharpness and a degree of, uh, like I said earlier, unsettled energy, you know, with this new moon. And here you have this methodical energy of Capricorn that surrounding it is all this unsettled energy. And then, oh, I missed, in addition to Mars being in a square and a half to, or Mercury being in a square and a half to Mars, Mars is also opposing Pluto right now. So it is very tense time, anger, divisiveness, testing of will. Um, the energy is one of overpowering, um, compulsion, obsession, debauchery. So we got all that in the air. How do we manage to tune ourselves, as this piece is suggesting? The technique it implies is that of attunement to the rhythm of universal life. Sometimes you just got to be able to steal away and step outside of whatever is the hustle and bustle of the moment. You know, this morning we left to go to the gym, and this has happened a few times, to be so involved in your mind, thinking so far down the road about what you got to do, and whatever you've been dealing with. And I'm like, did I close a garage when I let? And I know I closed it, but I didn't know, and I couldn't. And that feeling of, man, I just don't know. So then I got to drive back to the house, and and of course I see the garage is closed. But it bothered me because it says that you're not present in that moment. That means I wasn't present. I didn't even know if like, I knew, but I didn't. I wasn't present enough. Like, oh yeah, because when you remember, you can go back and relive the moment. Like, yeah, I remember how I reached up, I pushed the button, da da da. I couldn't even recall none of that. So that means I didn't live that moment. And that's kind of a reflection of this energy we're in, where it's tense. Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is our resources. And we've been dealing with that since 2018, of just things kind of being topsy turvy, you know, and can get you off your square. So, but this is not to be, I didn't highlight those aspects to be negative or gloom and doom. It is just to, hey, it is what it is. This is the energetic vortex that we're in right now as we wrap up this year. On the good side, we have uh, Mercury separating from its T square with Jupiter and Saturn. So, although it is still in this funky aspect with Mars today, but it's Mercury is a fast moving planet. So, you know, and as it moves into Capricorn, which will be pretty soon, it'll be out of its detriment, and it'll be in a more settled, um, conservative. Of course, I don't mean from a political standpoint, but you gotta qualify, you gotta everything you say, you gotta define it and clarify things. But conservative, as in Capricorn, is settled, it's earth. At least one aspect of Capricorn. Because what I'm gonna get into this evening is that Capricorn is not that as conservative as we think. But but from the standpoint of, from a mundane perspective, Mercury going into Capricorn gives us some more methodical, plotting, structured, a greater ability to learn, because the mind is settled in Capricorn. It's not being electrocuted. It is settled, and now it is ready to, it's a more mature mind with Mercury and Capricorn. But all this Capricorn energy. And so when we talk about Capricorn, like I just caught myself, we fall into the normal. These are some of the normal themes of Capricorn: authority figures, governance, professionalism, status, tradition, achievement, mastery, solitude, business. Okay, those are some words. Those are some Capricorn related words. Also, Capricorn can deal with themes of suffering. Capricorn deals with endurance, delayed gratification. Capricorn forces patience. And the word patience etymologically comes from the same family as pain. So pain and patience are joined at the hip. It's if you're not naturally patient, it's very painful to have to wait. And that's how we learn patience, by just having to endure the pain and not getting what you want when you want it. Saturn, Capricorn ruled by Saturn or Chronos is time and the related limitations relative to time. Capricorn, karma, contraction, guilt, shame. Capricorn. Now, the word Capricorn itself, this is one of the pieces out of my bundle, and in this one I break down the hidden, astrological, etymology, and symbology. So just like, what's the etymology of these words that we use to describe these signs? And Capricorn comes from caper, Kapr, which means goat. Okay. But we go further and we find that Capricorn is also from this same family. We get the word cab, and cab is short for cabriolet. And it was first defined as a light two-wheeled vehicle, which would coincide with the word chariot. And the 10th house is what we normally associate with career. And what career is symbolically referring to is a chariot of the sun. Chariot, two-wheel vehicle. Chariot coincides with cab. And so the chariot of the sun coinciding with career is that our career is how we bring our sun to the world stage. How do we bring us to the world? That's career. That's 10th house. So we see how these roads cross when we start looking at just breaking down words. To go further, I have on the back here, the title is Sun Signs Decoded. Okay. And this is great just stuff if you starting to study astrology and you're into just metaphysics and mythology and understanding language. I encourage you to get over to my website. You see the ticker at the bottom, 720astrology.com, and get this bundle. It's just packed with stuff. So I have here Capricorn, the goat. Peace, Teresa. I have Capricorn, the goat. It says in Mendes, in Egypt, this is where we get the god Men. And Men is worshipped under the form of a goat. In Egypt and Greece, it is associated with the goat, with the god Pan. Also associated with the word urge, which coincides with the name George. So there's a connection here between the word George, urge, and going back to the goat and to Capricorn. Peace, Yao. Now here's what's interesting. The French word for male goat is a bok. And bok bok is the same word as Bach, which in Cometian Egyptian linguistics refers to the hawk. Now, here's what's significant about this. This is why language is symbolism placed into lexicon. So if the French male goat is the bok, but that same name applies to the Egyptian hawk, bok, then here's the significance. Because as I go, we're going to go further into this, but I'll jump ahead and say that the goat would coincide with Set in Egyptian mythology. And the hawk would coincide with Horus. Now, these two are considered to be nemesis because, of course, Horus is avenging his father's death. Okay? But there's a well-known picture of, I don't know if I can get it up. Let's see. Let's see. Horus and Set. See if I can pull it up, if I can find it. See how it'll show up on here. It might not show up very well. No, it won't. It won't show up on the screen good enough. But it's a very well-known. Well, where's my book? Where's that book? I don't feel like digging it out. But there's a picture. I have it in a book. And it's basically Horus facing forward and Set, which is stylized as a donkey. He looks more like a donkey in this one. But these animals are interchangeable. So the donkey, the wolf, the bull, the goat, the pig, these animals that you'll find in certain religions will be maligned. This is often a blind because these animals are often representing actual deity or an aspect of the divine because it's showing the backside of it. But either way, that's initial information about Capricorn. What we're trying to do here is there are tons of very competent astrologers that you can find and watch the videos and give you great breakdowns on what they expect with this and that. And so my role, what I want to do is, at least this evening, is I want to look at the energy itself of Capricorn. A deep dive into Capricorn, or a shallow dive. We say shallow. We ain't gonna go too much, but a shallow dive into Capricorn and try to get a better understanding. Now, Valencia Scranton, in her book Celestial Ship of the North, says that Soot, as Saturn, was the original dog star. She also says that Capricorn, which Saturn rules, was called Makara. Now, Makara is a very ancient, that's a Sanskrit word. And Makara is loosely translated as crocodile. That's interesting. So she says, which is of the greatest significance as a spiritual mystery. It begins with the most sacred of all letters, M. Why is the M sacred? Because the M in many instances is referring to the divine mother, mama, and the M is a bilabial sound that represents the child being satiated as he grips onto the mother's breast to suckle. If you ever listen to a baby breastfeeding, you'll hear that they'll be doing like that. They're saying M. And so that mama, that M, is naturally connected to a feminine energy. Now, Scranton goes on to say that, and I might be getting ahead of myself, but we'll make it tie on in. She says that this word Makara represents an evolution of words, and she's kind of vague on this, and she says this comes from a fifth group. Okay. And she says, and then she goes to delve into the number 5, this correlation to this fifth group and the number 5. And she talks about how the number 5 is symbolized by the pentagon, the 5-pointed star, which we know, which again is a symbol of man. And also the 5 is a symbol of Venus. And in both India and Egypt, the pentagon was connected with the order of the Dyans, who were gods or co-workers with nature, who bore relation to the crocodile and made their home in Capricorn. This star, with 2 horns or points turned heavenward, so she's referring to an inverted star, was used in ceremonial magic and sorcery, and has been considered by occultists to be a star of the left hand. All right. So now what we're seeing is the correlation between what we kind of seeing is developing is the foundation for how the goat, which we have connected with Capricorn, which would then have a connection to the crocodile, would go on to later in organized religion become the scapegoat or the devil. Now, continuing to look at Capricorn, and I'm going to say, y'all stay with me because I'm just going to lay all this out. Capricorn also coincides with the seagoat. Now, the seagoat, its hind parts are that of a fish, and the front, a goat. Now, here's one clue that Capricorn and Saturn is way more than just how we may portray it at a mundane level. I gave you the mundane stuff: authority, government, professionalism, business, all that stuff, tradition, achievement, all the endurance. That's more of a mundane representation. But through the symbolism of it being associated with the seagoat, and just look how many animals we got going here. We got the crocodile, we got the goat, now we have the seagoat. Now, the seagoat is significant because it suggests transition. There's something transitional about Capricorn because the back leg, the back portion is a fish, and the front part is that of a goat. So there's a hidden message here that Capricorn has a deep connection just to the unseen, or what we would call spirituality, because that's what the fish would represent. The fish would represent spirit or spirit realm, because this is the water, the overwhelming water. You know, hey, Ashley. All right. I hope all is well with you. Said hopefully I'll be back to the gathering when the dust. Okay. All right. We looking forward to seeing you again. I hope are you getting the emails and recordings? I hope so. So yeah, that's to me, that's a clue just in itself right there. The seagoat, that's transition. You know, um, but when you look at the mythology behind the seagoat, and let me go to the mythology of Japan, because now we already said by Capricorns associated with the goat, there's an association with Pan, okay, also known as Faunus, Pan of the wilderness. So Japan, and Japan means all right, I will, and it has already been done for you, but we'll continue, Ashley. Yes. Japan, Asia means goat, and Pan means all. So Japan is the all goat. So Japan is in one regard considered to be the son of Zeus and the nymph Aix. Aix, the daughter of Pan, or the sun god Helios, may have been a goat and not a nymph. Okay. Then Japan assisted Hermes in recovering the sinews belonging to Zeus and stolen by Typhus. Japan is either the constellation Capricorn or Capra. Okay. He is sometimes shown as a goat with the lower body of a fish. See? So now we connecting piece by piece. So Japan, that nomenclature connects us to the sea goat aspect of Capricorn. All right. But then here's another character that's part of this. Amalthea. Amalthea is a goat who is raised by Pan. Amalthea is the goat who suck. Now this is a heavy one right here. Amalthea is the goat who suckled the infant Zeus in a cave at Lyctos. Okay. And I would imagine that this Lyctos is where we get our word lactose. In a cave at Lyctos on the island of Crete, one of the horns flowed with ambrosia, a cornucopia, and her other horn flowed with nectar. These horns are referring to the breasts. One breast flowed with ambrosia, and the other flowed with nectar. After her death, Zeus kept the horns filled with golden fruit from the garden of Hesperides to honor Amalthea. It became known as the Horn of Plenty. He used her to cover his shield, and it became known as the Aegis. It is said that in later times he hung the goat and horn in the sky, and it is now known as the constellation of Capricorn. Look how complex Capricorn's energy is. Okay. Very complex. We normally think of it being associated with father time, but we also see that really what is behind the Capricorn energy is feminine. After all, it is a feminine sign. It's the earth sign. And we see that there's nourishment that comes through Capricorn. And that's ironic, because the earth seems so bare, during Capricorn part of the year, Capricorn season. The earth has contracted. But what's funny though is that Capricorn is also associated with the hermit. And here, Zeus, which has a conflict with Capricorn energy, because his father Kronos tries to consume him or swallow him, and they gave him a rock instead to trick him. And Lyctos is where they shuttled the baby Zeus to hide him and protect him, where he could be suckled. Now, one thing we learned about Capricorn on a mundane level is it can be an energy of the hermit energy, solitude, pulling back from the world. And the cave, in one regard, is symbolically portraying that, because he's hiding from, or he's being hidden from his father, Zeus. But the same energy that he's hiding from is the same energy. The other side of it is what is nourishing him. See what I'm saying? Because what is nourishing him is the goat, and Capricorn is associated with the goat. So this is how complex mythology can be. But what these mythologies shows us is the complexity of our minds. That's why one person they can say, well, so and so was his mom and daddy, but then again, so and so was his mom and daddy, and then this set of parents had these attributes, and this set had this attribute. I'm pushing myself talking, but what these things are doing is they're showing us archetypes. This is what mythology, part of the reason mythology is set up by some geniuses who had the ability to anthropomorphize archetypes and give them these human qualities, or these recognizable qualities, and then they're beefing with each other. And what they're really showing is how these energies are really interacting, and then how they play out in us. So all this stuff I'm describing is especially applicable if you have strong Capricorn placements in your chart. And even if you don't, everybody got Capricorn in your chart. And what we're doing is trying to get a picture of how complex it is. It is beyond just, what am I going to do in the world? And, you know, MC energy. And it is, it's complex. And so for all this barren energy that's associated with Capricorn, it also is nurturing. So as the earth contracts and it appears to us that it is not providing anything outwardly, it inwardly, the cave, Zeus in the cave, is actually providing sustenance, because it is inwardly doing, the earth is doing a lot inwardly during this time of contraction, because it's the divine wisdom of the mother who knows to hold some seed back and to cover it so that there will be seed to present when spring comes back around. So that's another aspect. The connection to Pan. This comes from the Hero of a Thousand Faces. Pan representing the dangerous presence dwelling just beyond the protected zone of the village boundary. So in ancient, or I guess pre-classical, if you're not part of the city, you're considered to be excommunicated. To where? To the wilderness. So as late as the 18th century, the wilderness was really considered evil. And people who did not really know about the Americas, this was considered to be the jungle, the wilderness. This was a lot of swampland from what I've studied and found. There was a lot of marshland here, and just a lot of foliage and just thick growth. And this was considered to be the wilderness. Terrain of that nature would be considered to be the wilderness, because it was the idea of you don't know what awaits you. And the cities were built with these huge walls and these belfry towers, because the bell was the clock before the clock. And people would clamor to be in the city, although they were poor in the city, although they might have been mistreated. It was like, it's still better to be a part of the city than to be out here in the wilderness. It's very interesting. Very interesting. We can juxtapose that to right now, being on the grid and being up to date with all of the latest technology. And the biggest fear could be just being outside of the fold, where you got all the conveniences, because that is what creates panic. Panic when people feel like they're not going to have their conveniences, when they feel like they're not going to be provided for. So we got one side of Capricorn, the goat, who provides, but on the flip side, We have the goat who represents the fear of not being provided for, the wilderness. Now we got to, so now that we've connected Pan, we got to keep on going into Pan though, because Pan connects us to Bacchus. And Bacchus is another name for Dionysus. And Dionysus is the god of wine and I can't remember what's the term that they would use. Wine and basically fornication, pleasure. You know, he gets it in. Dionysus. As Bobby Hemmett would say, Ayatollah, whole controller, Dionysus. So Dionysus, so when we connect Pan to Bacchus Dionysus, we now have the debauchery, the fornication, the wine, delight, obsession, ecstasy through suffering. And the ecstasy through suffering was really laid out for us. If you ever watched Hellraisers back in the day, Pinhead, and how they took the guy who he was the stereotypical tall, dark, and handsome, and how these four, it's been years since I've seen it, but I'm just going out of memory. They took him, it was four of them, and they just tortured him, right? And that four represents the four directions, four elements, the four angular houses, and they ripped him apart. And the only thing that was left was his heart, because the heart is at the core, and they stripped away all of everything else, and that was what they wanted. And so this energy of Dionysus is what is actually saying is speaking to what is in your soul, what's in your heart. When you remove all of the trappings and the facades of what you're trying to present, what is deep down in you? What do you really desire? You know, so I think that's kind of what that was showing us. And so we see Pan through Bacchus and Dionysus. It's like this becomes, oh boy. Now remember, we still talking about the goat that connects to Capricorn. So there's obviously another side to Capricorn. You know, it's not, see, Capricorn may present as sometimes rigid or very reserved, you know, professional, you know, but behind the scenes may want to get that hair pulled, you know, because see, we got this Dionysian Bacchanalian side to Capricorn. Okay. Um and we know that Pan would be connected to so-called Satan or the devil or the scapegoat. So let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit. Let's go down that. And we'll refer back to, this is coming from the book The Devil. So here's the picture. I forgot I made a copy of it. Here's the picture of Horus and Set. And so how you see here, we got Horus the hawk, and then behind him, or this way, behind him there is Set, but they're part of the same being. Part of the same being. And so this then would coincide with, I think this is Matthew 16. Let me see. Matthew 16. I think this might be the one in the Bible. No. Terry said, I dated a Capricorn who was a stone cold freak behind closed doors. Oh, man. Yes, indeed. That's that Bacchanalian. I'm trying to find, what's that scripture where Peter, and I know I got it, where he tells Peter, get thee behind. Oh, I got it. Here you go. 16, Matthew 16. It's started. I guess I started 16. And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And he says, I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Now look at this. This is Christ giving him props. Like, I'm telling you, you my man. I'm about to move on. I'm getting promoted, but I'm telling you, I'm I'm bigging you up. I'm giving you the keys. You the next in line. You next. You know, you skip down about 2 verses from 21. From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised again the third day. Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. Now here's the plot twist. But he turned unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. Get thee behind me, Satan. So this scripture gave us big clues, because it presented them as like, hey, you my man, I'm passing it on you. And remember, we live in a realm of duality. And what we're trying to do is figure out how to deal with the fact that two exist, and those two appear to be in opposition or in polarity to each other. And we're trying to reconcile the opposition, the polarity, to form something higher, which would be what the number 3 would represent. Number 3 is referred to as the affinity, the perfection, the neutralization. The neutralization of what? The opposition. So that's why we have man and woman. That's why we have relationship. That's why we have up, down, in, out, because it sets the stage for rectifying what appears to be opposition. So here we see it. This Christ and Peter thing is something going on inside of a mind. This is the battle that we have. We had the battle between the God mind and the human mind, you know? And even the name Simon Peter is giving us a clue, because Simon means I will obey. something to that nature, obeying. And Peter means rock. I looked it up earlier. So Simon would represent the human aspect of I'm gonna go along to get along, and but Peter's the rock. So there's a conflict even in the name. Okay. Then we have another conflict between Christ and Peter, as we see laid out in the scripture, because they are of the same, but they are also opposing each other. We have this same type of conflict is played out with Jesus and Christ. Jesus would represent the human side. Christ would be the anointed. This is played out with God and the devil, good and evil. This is played out with masculine and feminine, exoteric, esoteric, Soot, Horus, Soot, Osiris. The same thing played out here of having to rectify these two opposing forces. Capricorn is showing us the need to recognize the duality and to come to terms with it. To come to terms with it. Capricorn, the energy deals with endurance because it deals with time. Things are slowing down in this season. Things are contracting. It's cold and you must endure this. But the word endurance, as we've talked about a million times, means truth. And it also means tree. And as we keep going, we'll see that some of these deities that are also associated with that spin off from the goat, they also double as tree gods. And ain't it funny that the word endurance, that's about truth, also is referring to a tree? And that the goat that is associated with Capricorn is the scapegoat. And Christ, by the story, dies for sins, which would make him the scapegoat. The same as the energy that is applied to the devil. So there's something here about us, because what do we think about Capricorn too? Responsibility. But the responsibility goes beyond just the mundane responsibility. Like, gotta go to work, gotta, pay my credit card bill, and I gotta pick up the children, da 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 da. It is responsible for my own soul evolution. That's a booger right there. Responsible for my own soul evolution. And that I cannot disregard the opposing energies within my own consciousness. And this is like some of that Jungian psychology, that I must merge them. I must integrate them. But how? One, I must acknowledge what all is in me. I must acknowledge it. And that's part of what this is showing. Even that which we would not like to even acknowledge is part of us. And look how they make him look so dark. That's also what we talk about so much on the internet. My shadow, I'm doing my shadow work, you know. Um so all of this is imbued into this. So continuing, there's a connection. So let's all this that we got. We got the goat, we got Pan, Age of Pan, Amalthea, we got seagoat. We have the connection between Pan and Bacchus and Dionysus. Then the connection to the devil, scapegoat, connection to Christ. Well, it continues because if you go and get the book, The Golden Bow, which is a must have. Peace, that crazy. It's all right. There's this connection with the corn spirit. And we know that Osiris was associated with corn. He was called a corn deity. Now, several reasons symbolically. Corn is a representative of the phallus. You know, it has these sheaths, and as you peel them back, then the phallus is revealed, and the stalks sit up tall, you know, and it represents fertility. The kernels almost could be considered to be sperm. And so Osiris association with corn, for one, is representing fertility, and it's representing resurrection. So in here they talk about the corn spirit connected to the goat, corn spirit as a goat. And they're going to make another reference again to the horns. It says, moreover, 2 horns are set up on the last heap of corn, and it is called the horned goat. And basically they go through different cultures in Europe and how they would set up these rituals around the corn and venerate them. But when we go back to the horn, I want to go back to something and point out. When I referenced the crocodile earlier, going back to the horns, one thing significant about the crocodile is that the crocodile is covered with horns, and the horns of Capricorn mystically are spirals. It is a sign which involves the synthesis of cosmic powers in their relation to human evolution. Listen to this. It is a sign that involves the synthesis. That word synthesis, SYN, means to come together. Thesis, basically, when you trace it back, it comes to music from the goddess Themis. And so synthesis is basically saying the same rhythm, the same beat. And so it is a sign that involves the synthesis or the same beat between the cosmic powers and human evolution. And that is all these juxtapositions we've made with Soot and Horus and Peter and Christ, God, devil, good, bad, masculine, feminine. Synthesis is, and that's another word for that, is alchemy. Creating something new out of this combination. This is part of also the connection between Capricorn and the seagoat. The back leg, the back part, is a fish. The front part is a goat. So that's transition, and it's talking about a fusion between two worlds, land and water, fusing these two. And when you put these two together, you make mud. And if you go and look in the scriptures, you see whenever Christ was healing somebody's sight, he spit into some earth and smack them in their face with some mud. And then they have sight, they have vision. So we have to take stuff and combine what we know into the little bit we get from these attributes, and we can put the whole puzzle together. So Capricorn is more than just government and iron fists, structure and building things. Capricorn is deep mysticism. Capricorn is the action of understanding the go of a stop. Capricorn is the action, because it's a cardinal sign. It's the action of understanding the go of a stop, because Capricorn slows things down to push things forward. All of these great prophets, John, Samuel, what's my man with the hair? Samson, Isaac, whoever was Manoah's wife. These women were barren at some point. They were barren. And so there was this time gap that had to be endured of being barren. But when they produced seed, it was magnificent. It was seed that would grow on and would replenish the earth magnificently. So there's a wisdom in Capricorn around creating this barren state that is actually working to produce a cornucopia, a horn of plenty. Now let's move it up to the mundane for a minute before I haven't even finished going through this corn deity goat association. But look at how heavy the energy is right now. You know, look how many people are under stress. I mean, stress. You know, to that point, like, man, I don't, you know, and the thing is, it's going to progressively pick up, because, you know, like 2023 was a lead up to 2024. 2024, we saw Pluto's, 2023, Pluto stuck his toe in Aquarius, went back. Then 2024, Pluto spent a great deal of the year in Aquarius, but it went back. Now 2025, we're going to live with Pluto in Aquarius the entire year. But what's going to happen is Neptune is going to dip his toe into Aries and then go back into into Pisces. And I think Saturn is going to I know Saturn's going to make an ingress in Aries, and I'm pretty sure Saturn is going to retrograde back into Pisces one last time. And then by 2026, they will officially be in Aries. Now, in latter part of 2025, Uranus is going to dip into Gemini. then it's going to go back into Taurus. And now that's concerning because we see how crazy the year was this year with Pluto going back to that 29 degree to finish up that business. So we know Uranus is going to finish up some business when it goes back into Taurus before it. So this thing is going to kind of ratchet up piece by piece for the next couple of years. And we're building up to a 2030 climax. But in the midst of all of that, here's the challenge, especially with today being where we had a new moon in Capricorn. And what does a new moon represent? It represents a birthing. The sun and the moon are together. They are opening a new cycle. And it's in Capricorn, where the action is a stop for the purpose of a go. We slow down. We analyze, and we take the vision that came from Sagittarius, and then we say, okay, great idea. Now we must take the steps to build it. Sagittarius planet gave the vision, but we all know how Sagittarius can. Today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm going to do, it's mutable. But Capricorn takes it and places a stop on all of that, because we're just not going to be, oh, yes, amazing. No, we're going to stop and we're going to hone in on this now. And now we must build it. So it creates a stop for a go. Now, the challenge for us is to have this mindset in the midst of all this bullshit. To have a personal mindset of being able to take an idea, a vision, and to build that vision, even while you may be getting rained on, even while you may be in the midst of a blizzard. I'm speaking metaphorically. You're in the midst of a flood, but you're still building. I'm out here every day, block by block, put my mortar down, placing my block. I'm building, because that's how the magic of Capricorn is released. Because all these motifs we're showing about Capricorn applying to this and applying to that, basically we're showing that there's a wealth of hidden energy within Capricorn that we have to tap into. And we have to be willing to go out into the wilderness, because that is Capricorn's realm. We have to go out into the realm of Pan. Which says that there's an element of gambling with Capricorn. And you just don't associate gambling with Capricorn. But if you think about it, Capricorn creates a situation. Life is a gamble with Capricorn, because the earth is rigid. It's contracted. So life becomes a gamble. It's not gambling for fun like Aries. No, life itself is a gamble with Capricorn. And so the gamble is that you methodically act on a vision that you had. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. We're trying to give context to the moment that we're in right now. We're trying to understand the full context and complexity of Capricorn so that we can utilize all of its energy. Before Zeus took over, Saturn was the ruler of Earth by some standards. And Saturn was of the people. This is what some traditions refer to as the golden age. Saturn walked with the people. Zeus separated itself. I must be on Mount Olympus. But Saturn was of the people. Saturn came and touched the earth. Saturn's an earth sign. So part of the magic of Saturn is us being able to utilize what is at our disposal. Because that's what he did, or that energy represented being amongst the people, which representing being boots on the ground, feet in the dirt. You got to think this way about whatever you're dealing with right now in your life. You got to think about, how did I put my feet in the dirt? How do I ground myself again? Because the earth radiates magical power. And that power is hidden. That power is subtle. This is part also of what this represents, this picture. This is the subtle energy. Notice it's in the back of his head. So this is also referring to the subconscious. How do we make this work for us? How do we need to reprogram it? So these are things we got to really think about as weaponry as we are moving forward into this new paradigm. Put on the full armor. Okay. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for your generosity. If you are not in the 720 teaching class, I highly encourage you to join. We deep dive every Sunday, and our Discord group stays on fire. That's the truth. It's the real deal, Jimmy. Thank you, Terry. So going back to this corn spirit, I don't know which one of these I want to. We'll go here. Ancient deities of vegetation. Okay. To begin with Dionysus. Here we go with Dionysus again. We have seen that he was represented sometimes as a goat and sometimes as a bull. As a goat, he can hardly be separated from the minor divinities, the Pans, the Satyrs, the Selenices, all of whom are closely associated with him and are represented more or less completely in the form of goats. Thus, Pan was regularly portrayed in sculpture and painting with the face and legs of a goat. The Satyrs are depicted with pointed goat ears and sometimes with sprouting horns and short tails. They were sometimes spoken of simply as goats. And in the drams, their parts were played by men dressed in goat skins. Silenus is represented in art clad in a goat skin. Further, the fauns, the Italian counterpart of the Greek Pans and Satyrs, are described as being half goats with goat feet and goat horns. Again, all these minor goat formed divinities partake more or less clearly of the character of woodland deities. Woodland deities. Now, woodland would represent the wilderness, and the wilderness would represent hell. You know, because that was hell to be in the wilderness. But right now, we are in the wilderness. We as a collective are in the wilderness. We're confused. You got a million people giving a million opinions online. This is what, da 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 da. And you're like, okay, who do I? We're in the wilderness. You know, there's all types of misdirection being put out on by certain controlling entities. You know, uh, there's all types of confusion. So we are in the wilderness right now. And we're being challenged to, because it says, again, all these minor goat form divinities partake more or less clearly of the character of woodland deities. So, how do we make this work in our favor? We have to. What do you know about? I'm gonna tell you what I know about Capricorns in my life. A lot of times they're hard-working people. My great grandmother, who I didn't know, Peggy Leach, but I was told how she was still walking miles to go clean people's houses up until her 60s, walking. You know, I know Dorothy Jean Harrison, my grandmother, Capricorn, work. Labib Mustafa, my uncle, you know, and these is my ancestors now, but work. He's the man who took a garage. He bought a piece of land, had a garage on it, and he built a whole house out of, he took the garage and just kept building onto it till he had a house. Is mind blowing. And these people are, and it's methodical work. So if you take that and apply it at a spiritual and a level of consciousness, you have to work methodically. You have to identify what program keeps running over and over on repeat. Same program. And that's where the work got to be. In the wilderness, because that's the wilderness. Your own personal wilderness is that shit keep running over and over. And it is this that we keep trying to suppress that needs to be integrated. By acknowledging this, and that's where the responsibility of Capricorn comes in. We're responsible for our own evolution. We're responsible for surviving through the winter. You know, we're responsible. How we gonna get this wood in here? How we gonna get this kerosene? Everybody got to pull their weight. So I'm jumping back, mundane to the magnificent. The magnificent is you actually working on your own inner demons. So that this system cannot trigger those to work against you, because that's what this thing is set up to do. This thing that we're in now, we're in the wilderness, and it is set up to try to drive you crazy. That's what this shit is. Tell you something. They're building psych hospital additions for children right here in my area. They're building tons of children hospitals, just billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar facilities. And you don't do that unless you've already projected to fill those beds. So the mind is just under heavy attack. So if we're not doing things to, I think C. Freeman to say, if you don't control your mind, somebody else will. So Capricorn is an energy of work, hard work. And all these energies that we brought up, they're talking about our subconscious. Dionysus, this is what Bacchus, they're talking, Pan, they're talking about your subconscious mind, because that's the wilderness. The city represents your conscious mind, because that's where we're comfortable functioning. Everything has a place. We're supposed to act this way in this situation, but your subconscious mind is the wilderness. See what I'm saying? So this symbolically what all this stuff is referring to. And then we're in a world now where what's happening is whatever is going on in us subconsciously is exponentially being mirrored out into the world. And it's going to increase as Saturn moves into Aries and Neptune, and those two will eventually conjoin. But just Neptune and well, let's take both. Those two in Aries, Saturn is in fall in Aries. Because remember, I said Saturn says no to produce a go. Well, Aries says go, and nobody's going to tell me no. So here you have Saturn in this energy of just fuck it, just go, and it's like it's a clash. It's oil and water. So Saturn's pulling back, and Aries wants to push forward. And what this can do is create either a state of hyper insecurity or a state of hyper selfishness, because Capricorn is a contracting energy and Aries is the self. So we might see a lot of me, fuck you, it's about me, and that energy is already pervading our reality, but it's going to get worse. And then when you put Neptune in Aries, which fuses energy, it blends things. Okay. It also can deal with toxicity. It can deal with delusion. Then what we might have is narcissism. And so what happens is failure to work on self while all these outer planets have been in feminine signs where we've been given the opportunity to look at ourselves, to clear out some old baggage, to release some shit, to go out into the wilderness and clean up some stuff. Wherever we have just kind of, ignored it or being so ignorant, or no, not ignorant, but so stupid. See, ignorant mean I just choose not to. I see, but I don't care. But stupid is just not even having the ability to even recognize. So we got both. We got ignorance and stupidity. Either way, it amounts to the work not getting done while these planets were in these esoteric feminine signs. So now when they come out into the exoteric, outer expressing masculine, they're going to show what has not been done collectively. So the subconscious workings of people individually will spew out into the collective unconscious, and then we will be living in that. So we're in the wilderness. So that means those of us who got some sense are going to have to be the wizards who control our atmosphere. We're going to have to control the weather wherever we are. You may already notice you go somewhere and everybody looking at you, or people act funny around you because they pick up something about your energy. Well, own that shit. Own it. Whatever it is that own that energy and cultivate it. I hope I'm making sense. Some of they refer to this is a Russian term. So they're talking about in Russia, these goat formed spirits of the woods have their counterparts in the folklore of Northern Europe. Thus, the Russian wood spirits called Lejeshi, from Lejesh, meaning wood, are believed to appear partly in human shape, but with the horns, ears, and legs of goats. The Lejeshi can alter his stature at pleasure. When he walks in the wood, he is as tall as the trees. When he walks in the meadows, he is no higher than the grass. Some of the Lejeji are spirits of the corn as well as of the wood. Before harvest, they are as tall as the corn stalks, but after it, they shrink to the height of the stubble. This brings out what we have remarked before, the close connection between tree spirits, remember I mentioned, and corn spirits, and shows how easily the former may melt into the latter. Skipping down, the fondness of goats for straying in woods and nibbling the bark of trees, to which indeed they are most destructive, is an obvious and perhaps sufficient reason why wood spirits should so often be supposed to take the form of goats. Now, what's also hidden in here, so of course this is further connecting the goat to the corn spirit to the tree spirit. But let me go back to this. It says the fondness of goats for straying in woods and nibbling the bark of trees, to which indeed they are the most destructive. That's telling us something in there. That's telling us something. If the woods, i.e., wilderness, represents a place that we don't want to be, it's a place of discomfort. It's saying that the goat knows how to function in this place. And they go out there and start eating bark and shit. And and it says destructive. Another word for destruction is chaos. And when we go, I don't know how I'm gonna post this lecture. Maybe I'll put it on some type of way. But for those who were there for the almond lecture, Seed of Chaos and Order, we demonstrated how we see over and over chaos is part of a order, a divine order. There really ain't no chaos. So there's something deep wisdom that this goat has, that as it's destroying things, it knows that it is still working within a hierarchy, a higher order. So sometimes we may be holding on to things, trying to maintain a certain order or semblance of order, when it has been set on a clock to go through entropy or decay, because the decay allows for the new cycle to start. And Capricorn season is a time of entropy. Stuff breaking down, falling apart, brittle. No, it looks like life is impossible. But at the same time, it is setting up the new cycle. So there's some wisdom in the goat. Sometimes we just need chaos. Now, of course, that comes down to who's behind the chaos and what intentions of a new order do they have in place, which we don't have no control over that, but we have control over our order. And where maybe we need to invite a little chaos to bring an end to a previous cycle that we have been in. And that ties back again to that subconscious, that program. Keep running, keep running, keep running. That program needs to go through a period of entropy. It needs to decay. The goat is out here in the wilderness nibbling on tree bark, fucking shit up. So, I mean, it's a million. I could go on and on. I got so much. This the golden bow is so voluminous. It's tiny, tight, and I'm noticing my eyes are getting, old boy, getting older. You know, reading this tiny, tight, and but we're looking to tie in the mundane and the magnificent with this Capricorn season. So we finished our class Sunday, and we finished on where do I need to show discipline? What do I need to build? And what mountain am I unafraid to climb? And these are Capricorn themed questions. What mountain am I unafraid to climb? You know, that mountain range rises up out of this land of wilderness. Because all of this is the wilderness where the goat is at, where it's roaming. And then that ibex goat sees to go and get salt. See, study nature, and then go back and break these things down and see where nature may be giving us clues. That ibex goat will scale a mountain that almost looks perpendicular to the ground very carefully. Capricorn, carefully stepping, and he's got those split hooves, and they got this like this perfect cushion and padding where it absorbs and it allows it to kind of grip any little crevice in the face of that mountain so it can get some grip or and some footing. Very spongy knees. So when it lands, it can absorb the shock. But it's going to get salt. And you think about, and this how my mind works. A lot of times that you don't always have a source to get your answers from. You just inference. I'm guilty of I'll infer my way all the way through something, you know. When we use a body bill, another dude who we worked out with, he said, "Yeah, man, I was dieting and and Herman had me take 16 amino acids for a meal." Now, I never talked to Herman about it. I never asked Steve why did he do it, but in my mind, I said, if he had him take 16 amino acids, let me go and grab me a bottle of amino acids. I know amino acids are the building block of protein, and I counted, and it said each tablet had 1 gram of protein. And I figured, I said, he gave him them amino acids so his stomach wouldn't expand because it was digesting food, but he still gave him 16 grams of protein because he was at the end of his diet and he needed to shrink his waist and his stomach down to get on stage. And I was like, damn. And that's how I figured it out. So I'm telling you, that's called inference. So we're going to do the same thing with this ibex goat. The ibex goat scales this ridiculous mountain to get salt. Now let's think. Y'all in the fuck? Y'all are intelligent. What is salt? Ain't salt an electrolyte? And don't we need, because when we use a diet for these shows, we would cut all our salt out for the last 10 days. And that's how your skin becomes like shrink wrap around the muscle because you pull the water out. Water follows salt. You pull the salt out and the water goes with it. You put the salt back in, here comes the water. So we would be depleted of salt. We would be depleted of potassium because what are these called? The electrolytes. So what do? They affect your heart, especially because we are electromagnetic creatures and our heart needs electricity to function. So the electrolytes. Now the goat ties back to Bacchus, to Dionysus. Dionysus, think about Pinhead. And when they tore this dude up, all that was left was his heart. There you go, Ashley. Alchemical process. So salt is a catalyst. It is a catalyst of transformation, and it's a catalyst that keeps the heart, which is the core, functioning. That crazy. She didn't want straight chemistry on. She said maintains a delicate ionic balance. Let me post both of these. Delicate ionic balance in the body. Ions, positive, negative. There we go again. Positive, negative, which is rectifying polarization. So it is something they're pursuing something that is going to help to regulate and maintain or create a sense of homeostasis. But they're having to come through a realm of chaos to get to it because they're in the wilderness. They have to go through the wilderness to get to the place of balance and harmony. So I think it's about enough to wrap up. Just encouraging everybody. Damn, it's 202. I was born in room 202. 202. Encouraging everybody to first revisit what your truth is. This is why Sagittarius is important before we get to Capricorn, because Sagittarius helps us revisit and establish a vision, an idea, a philosophy, a truth. So Capricorn then tells us to go and act on that truth. So right now, with all this hard energy, what's your truth? What's your philosophy? And if you don't have one, then we need to sit in that. We need to sit in that. And then we need to be willing for that to be tested. We need to be willing to allow it to be tested. And then be mindful too that Saturn traditionally rules Aquarius. And so ultimately, Saturn is releasing us through the gate into a new tomorrow, because Saturn sits at the gate of the gods. So as we get released into Aquarius, Saturn said, all right, now let's build a future. Because spring officially starts in Aquarius season. My birthday is the official start of spring. The equinox is mid-spring. May 1st is summer, which is why June 21st or 22nd is called the Midsummer Festival, because that's the middle of summer. So Capricorn is really preparing us for spring. Saturn is preparing us for spring, for tomorrow. Figure out something that you can do methodically over and over in the pursuit of mastery. Be about your mastery right now. Be about your mastery. Be about your mastery. Be about your mastery in the midst of all this. Ain't it crazy how this year we've had so many things come up in the news and then a week later it's gone? You ain't it crazy? Every week is something new. Ain't nobody talking about no drones no more. Nobody's talking about Senate hearings about We want to know, did you see UFOs? Or, oh, I can't say, but I did, but I can't say. Gone. Drones, gone. So something or some entities have been working all this year to occupy attention, attention, attention. So if you can be about your father's business and lock in the midst, even if shit looking fucked up, stay locked in. Get yourself around some people who support that type of energy. Separate from people who don't. Separate from that aspect of yourself that might not support that. Let that shit go. Hold a funeral for it. Ashley says the Saturn glyph then flips into Jupiter of a bunch. That's right. That's right. It flips. That's right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. I always get off of here and I'd be like, man, I forgot to say this. I forgot to say that. But this is cool. I got to live with it. But I'm sure I'm leaving out a whole bunch of other stuff I wanted to touch on, but shit, that's enough. Capricorn's a complex energy. It is more than meets the eye. It invites us to really, when you think about it, connecting to Dionysus, it's also connecting us to Pluto, underworld energy, and it's inviting us because we're pulled back into the house in these colder months, and we're being pulled back into ourselves. And we're being reflective. And this is also allowing for healing. Sometimes you got to be slowed down so you can heal. Sometimes you got to get knocked off your feet because there's some healing that we just have been so inundated with life that we just either have refused or just not even had the space to consider. Sometimes the contract we signed is set up to where, we knew that we'd probably get forgetful, and the contract has stuff in place to kind of knock you off your feet, to force you to slow down and reconnect, reset, go into a cocoon, come out anew. So just some things to keep in mind as we're trying to mitigate times that are of biblical proportions. I mean, this is, if writing and records still exists in the next whatever few centuries, this shit right here, they're going to be studying this. They might be pulling up our old videos and whatever, or they're going to be studying this. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. Peace, God, science. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up. For all of your all of your astrological needs. You see it at the bottom, 720astrology.com. Just a reminder, I now have Klarna and Affirm and Cash App Pay available on my site. So if your money's a little tight at the moment, you know you can do the Klarna and Affirm. And I don't know how Cash App, but I know Klarna and Affirm is they let you make payments on things. But come holler at me. Come and invest in yourself. You know, you can invest in a reading, invest in some coaching, invest in the bundle, enrich yourself going into 2025. Get weaponized, you know? And on that note, I'm gonna bid y'all a good evening and tell you to always stay down till you get up. And when you get up, stay down. And of course, know the stars to know yourself. Peace.